Greetings everybody and welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're back with a mini-series that I'm currently running. This is the final episode of the series. And basically, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's called My Favorite Bands with Family Issues. So basically it's just about the problems that some members have with each other in the band. In almost all the cases, it's been band members that have left the band or been kicked out of the band or been replaced in the band who kind of want to come back in and rejoin the group, and that doesn't seem to be happening. In this case, it's a little bit more severe. This is probably the worst case of it. We've got two members of the band who absolutely don't like each other at all. And this feud has been going on for literally decades. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. To me, it's an ego battle, but that's just my own opinion. I see it going on. I get it. I'm not a huge fan of the guy that left the band, so I don't really want to get into a debate of whether who's right or who's wrong. It doesn't really matter. But the band we're going to be talking about today is Pink Floyd. Yes, the wonderfully great and fantastic progressive rock band, psychedelic rock band, and one of the biggest bands in history. So we'll do what we normally do here. We're going to talk about the group. First, we'll talk about their history. So they started as a band in 1965, one of the kind of leading, if not the leading band in the psychedelic and eventually progressive rock movement of that time period. This was, of course, their debut album, which featured Roger Waters, Nick Mason, Rick Wright, and the late Syd Barrett. And actually writes late as well. But anyways, that was their debut album. Not, to me, not a great album, but not a bad album either. And then they moved on. This is probably one of my favorite of their albums, Mother. Adam Hart, Mother. And then they had a series of albums that I think kind of started with this one, which is Metal. This begins to be where their sound starts to coalesce into what it becomes. In my opinion, that's where it started. And then they have like some of the greatest rock albums in history, I think. Dark Side of the Moon, maybe the best rock album of all time. Animals is my particular favorite. And of course they had huge commercial success with The Wall, not one of my favorite albums, but this was the culmination of everything they'd done and probably the end of the group here at this point. Well, the end of the era with Roger Waters in charge anyways. So this is pretty much a Roger Waters album for the most part. He did almost all, if not all, the writing on here and did not get along with the other members. Was kind of a bit of a dictator. But there's a lot of David Gilmour on this album as well. So, and then their final album was Endless River, which I don't own and have no plans to get. So if I see it for a reasonable price, I might. But other than that, I haven't gone out of my way to look for it. So my history with Pink Floyd is a little bit different. I came in on this album, 1979, but it's a bit of a misnomer to say I came in. That's where I discovered the band and heard the music and heard this album quite a bit on the radio, almost all the time. I never liked it. And I didn't see why people got all whipped up with these guys, but I recognized that they were a huge band at that time period. I just didn't care for them and never pursued them. And then one day in the early part of this century, after my daughter was born, I was at a yard sale and discovered this album. Somebody was selling it for $1 and I bought it. And it was in great shape. I thought, you know what, for $1 I'll give them a second chance. And I absolutely love this album. I loved it. Right off the bat, I loved it. And I thought, wow, this is totally, completely different than The Wall. And so I had this hiatus of over 20 years not listening to the band because of my own impotence. So, and then Shortly after that, I went out and I bought, I think maybe 3 or 4 years, well, it might have been only a couple summers after that, I went out and bought this album, which is my favorite Pink Floyd album, and I absolutely adore this album. I think it's one of the greatest albums of all time. And that's when it started. And then for me, I think I got a couple of more, maybe Wish You Were Here, I can't remember. But anyways, those were the three I had. The two I had, Dark Side of the Moon and Animals were the two I had. And now I have almost the entire discography. Since I started this channel, I've really opened the door, floodgates for this band. I think they've got so much. They're kind of a funny band, so like half of their albums are like absolutely fantastic. The other half I almost don't like. It's weird. I don't understand it, but it's the case. So that's my history and my brief history of Pink Floyd. So Pink Floyd, of course, started in 1965, and after a short bit, they did their first album, which is this album here, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And then the next album they did was Saucer Full of Secrets, and that was the first album for David Gilmour. And shortly after, he replaced Syd Barrett completely, as Syd Barrett had a mental breakdown and had to leave the band. And in the 70s, they became more dominantly run by Roger Waters with their Dark Side of the Moon, Animals, Wish You Were Here, and then ultimately The Wall, which was the last album where the band broke up and really have not done anything with each other since. Now, Pink Floyd, of course, have released A Momentary Lapse of Reasoning and Division Bell, and then later, much later, they did The Endless River. So they have released some albums since then, but none of them with Roger Waters. So this is the problem, right? So now we're down to the product. So Roger Waters does not like David Gilmour, and David Gilmour does not like Roger Waters. This feud has been now ongoing for 40 years. They constantly try to dish each other. I think Roger Waters, though, has a little bit more issues than David Gilmour, and I find him to be a bit harsh of an individual. I don't think I would want to work with him either. So, but I understand. They did do a one-off concert, and I believe it might have been in 2004 or 2008, in that period of time, for a charity. I can't remember exactly which one it was. I didn't follow it. And then they were offered $150 million to go on a world tour, and they turned it down. So money doesn't always matter to people whose egos are sometimes more important, right? So anyways, what I like, is there a chance these guys, first of all, is there a chance these guys might get back together and do something? I think it's really, really remote. Of all of the ones I've done, of the 4 or 5 issues, of the 5 episodes I've done, this is to me the least likely to be something that happens. There's just too much animosity between the two individuals, David Gilmour and Roger Waters. And even though Nick Mason gets along with both of them, I don't think he can mend the fences here. So if they're not willing to get together for $150 million. There's not really much else that you can do to get them together. So I don't really see this ever being a possibility again. And it's really getting late in the hour now too, so I just don't see it happening. Would I like to see it? Well, I think I'm like most Pink Floyd album fans. I would absolutely love for them to put some kind of killer album together like they did in the 70s. The 3 remaining guys. I miss Richard Wright. But I would love to see them put something absolutely outstanding, and this is the one band that could still do it, I think. Put something outstanding out there, but I just don't see it really. I don't really see it happening, so I'm not counting on it, but I'm like most fans. I would love to see something like this happen. But again, of course, I get why they don't want to be in the same room with each other. They never really liked each other, and there's always been some animosity between them, and it's only getting worse as time goes on. So maybe it's best to just, to me, maybe to my way of thinking, Pink Floyd is basically defunct. They're retired and not likely ever going to be coming back, and I've accepted that. They did put out some huge volume of great albums, and so there's still lots more for me to explore with them as well. So anyways, that's my take on Pink Floyd and their family issues and what I think about whether they can get back together or not. I'd like it, but yeah, I don't see it really happening. So anybody who has comments about Pink Floyd or about this series or about anything I've said, you can put them in the comment section below. And please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And I thank you for joining me for this five video mini series on my favorite bands that have family issues. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did doing it, and we will probably be doing another mini series before the end of the month, but next month we're going to be starting with a month-long series, which is going to be my 30 favorite albums from the year 1979. I've been thinking about it for a bit, and there was another series I had in mind too, but I think I'm going to leave that one for a bit, maybe till the new year. This one seems more up my alley because I think I can put this together fairly simply and fairly easily, and time won't be as much of a constraint. And then we'll be back in December with another Battle of the Bands, which in this is I've mentioned a little bit that Ben has chosen 31, I think it's 31 groups, or 32 groups to do battle, and they're all solo artists from big bands that had their own albums, and I think that's what it is. I could be wrong, but that's what I think it is. So we will be doing that in December. So for the rest of this day, I hope you have a good one. So please like and subscribe, and we will be back with another series not too distant future. So take care and goodbye.